the first thing I would like to remind everyone that 1 year before 2004, which we actually celebrate 10 years of enlargement, there was one conference held in Thessaloniki in 2003, which was 1 year before other countries were, Eastern countries were accepted to the European Union. That there was a meeting in Thessaloniki between the West Balkan countries and EU. And at that conference, it was promised to Balkan countries who passed a very rocky wartime and destruction during the 90s, that all of these countries have perspective to become members of the European Union, of course, under the condition that they respect the requirements necessary to be the member of the European Union. The priority, which is a topic of this session, the priority was, especially for the Balkans, but in general it's so, to get better regional relations among the newly created countries after the dismembering of Yugoslavia and the war during the 90s. So stability, in a sense, was a goal and a condition, for these countries to have future and to join the European Union. At that time, I have to say that we all from Western Balkan countries, we created a shared vision that maybe first time in history, all these countries who had very rough history, not only 90s but before, that we have like joint goal that we are all on the same road going, expecting to be the members of the European Union. What I want to do now is just to review after these 10 years what happened and with stabilization and what happened with the joint vision being the member of the European Union. I will start with the first aspect of stabilization, and I think I call that normalization. Normalization between the countries. I call that external relationship. And I have to say a positive, we have a substantial improvement in normalization. Since these years, we developed economic relations. There is quite a bit of cultural and social exchanges and cooperation. There is a lot of tourism, traveling. There is the walls between these countries. There is no visa. And also, we had some non-governmental meetings on different levels. And also, we had on very high level political meetings of representatives, especially among Serbia and Croatia, and partially with Bosnia. And even sometimes we had expressed to each other a pardon for the war crimes, which also happened between Serbia and Croatia, but only maybe partially with Bosnia, which was almost the critical and the most damaged country of 1990s war. So in that respect, I might say that normalization is, let's say, achieved. And then in this vein, I would like to point out that the last point of unsettled and potentially violent situation remained between Serbia and Kosovo. So in that vein, recently, actually last year, exactly a year ago, Serbia and Kosovo, Pristina and Belgrade, opened up a dialogue on the highest political level, and that was organized and mediated by the EU representative, and it was achieved, let's say, a successful story that this dialogue resulted in signing Brussels Agreement, which resolved, how to say, the problem not really implemented fully, and the whole agreement is not fully implemented, but the main idea was to find ways to protect Serbian minority in Kosovo, and to integrate the northern Kosovo, where actually Kosovo institutions didn't have any influence. Serbian minority are supposed to create a community of Serbian municipalities in the northern Kosovo, and also there is the spread of Kosovo institution on the whole territory of Kosovo. But in general terms, if I were to generalize that, it's important that, that this normalization in practice meant that Serbia de facto recognized the existence of Kosovo as independent country, but of course still refusing to recognize Kosovo formally as an independent country. Well, since I said that it's a kind of success story, which was very well received in Brussels and broader, that still that problem has not been resolved, not only because Kosovo has many internal problems, but also in other aspect that when the security problems are put as the most important, like it happened with Serbia, that many pressures were actually on the way of joining the European Union, that Kosovo became the condition of all conditions as the most important one, to go toward European Union. If you put that in the first place, and at the same time you have 5 European countries who have not yet recognized Kosovo as independent, that we experience now a paradox. In Serbia, we have now a lot of applauding, maybe for the first time, that Serbia is so cooperative in resolving like normalization with Kosovo. At the same time, when you give priority to security problems, that internally we went, how to say, downhill in the sense of our economic situation, democratic institution, the freedom of media, and court judiciary system. And actually, we have now one-man show in Serbia. So we went down to, let's say, semi-authoritarian regime. And nobody, if you want to know, which are also the very important conditions for joining the European Union, at the same time, we were rewarded by opening up official negotiations in January this year with the European Union. Kosovo was promised, to get the association and stabilization association agreement. But at the same time, internally, there is no progress. And if you want to raise that question and say, well, look, this is very good that we came to that agreement and there is more normalization in the region, but at the same time, nobody wants to listen to that. The guys who are complying to these security problems, on the other hand, they have like open hands, to do whatever, and even you cannot raise what's about our media, what about judiciary system, what about this? My feeling is that nobody is interested in that. It's just Kosovo, just security problems, but not, the other conditions which are very important for our life in the country, probably in Kosovo and in Serbia. But that's I think, the same thing I would say is the case of Montenegro. You have there also one man who is in power maybe 20, 25 years, and he's very cooperative with international community, so-called. Then the internal situation, which is, let's say, again, one-man show, that all the power is heads on one man. Nobody is actually questioning that, and, so this is a paradoxical situation now in some of the Balkan countries. But when I go a little deeper to the meaning of stabilization in the sense of reconciliation, my opinion is that the results are not really satisfactory. Stabilization and reconciliation after almost 20 years of actually the wars were finished, because next year, 2015, you will have 20 years since Dayton Agreement. During these 20 years, reconciliation and stabilization is very weak, very thin, meager, and unsatisfactory. Why is that so? I mean, the main problem is that are actually not relations so much between the countries, but the problems of the damaged individual countries, which have not resolved their own problems. What I have in mind first, troubled countries, in the first place like Bosnia and Herzegovina, then Macedonia, then Kosovo, and also partially Serbia, as I already mentioned. I'll just make a little distraction and say a couple of words about Macedonia. This is the country that we have always imagining that the most important conflict in Macedonia is that ethnic division, which was also institutionalized in Macedonia. But in the last 6-7 years, there was a strong, a very harsh political conflict, which was so strong that, that even they needed international mediation to settle down the conflict between the government and the opposition. And that was actually the result, again, of deterioration of democracy and going to, again, as I said, to semi-authoritarian system, which you have now in Macedonia. But for Macedonia is an interesting case also from other aspects, taking into account the influence of European Union. I think that Žarko Puhovski said many times, I heard you saying that, and we also feel that way, that sometimes European Union is not treated all West Balkan countries in the same way. Macedonia, I would say, was some kind of a discriminated country because Macedonia was actually the only country which always tried to comply to all the expectations for abroad, but it was never really rewarded, on the way to European Union. Macedonia became, got the candidacy for European Union in 2005, and in 2009, they got opened up negotiations, but negotiations, they never got a date. And even last year, when this political conflict in Macedonia within the national mediation was resolved, they were promised that when Serbia last year, after Dayton, after Brussels agreement, will be rewarded with open up negotiations, they was said Macedonia will be also in the same group to get the date for opening up negotiations. But last June, at the end of June, when Serbia was promised, from the European Union to get the date, and actually we got the date this year, 21st of January. We opened up negotiations for membership. Macedonia was completely forgotten, and so this is. I don't know how to explain that. Why you have sometimes some double standards, and when you apply double standards to certain countries in that troubled region, then you should expect, all these deterioration processes because there is no actually progress in that same and joint vision for all the countries. The biggest and the most complicated problem, as I said now, in the individual countries of ex-Yugoslavia, is Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina are categorized as a failed state, as official category for that country, because that country is not functional. And actually what happened there, the war consequences were not clear. What are actually the war consequences for Bosnia? And also it was unclear the peace agreement itself, which was created to get to the peace. I have in mind now Dayton Agreement, which was achieved and signed in 1995. And by that agreement, the war was stopped in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but it was written in such a way that no states would be possible to become any functional state following the rules of that agreement. So I think the main problem is that Dayton Agreement stayed too long without any changes to give more life and connection between the people so they can develop also their establishing possibilities, to develop standards and to join also European Union. So actually, Bosnia and Herzegovina is the only West Balkan countries which does not have any agreement with European Union. So it's completely apart. And now it's left alone as a black hole in the middle, and nobody is doing actually anything at the moment to alleviate the problems of Bosnia. Actually, what the situation in the field is somewhat like this. You have three ex-warrior elites or local leaders, which cannot agree about anything, and they actually, with still national rhetoric, they parasitize, on feeding the division of the country and their own position. Instead, to make any progress, actually we have not only destabilization and all that, but we have also stagnation and all the time deterioration up to the point that we don't know how Bosnia will be maintained as a country or whether it will go to disintegration. 2 minutes. Well, I'll be a little longer. So my proposal for this very heavy, difficult problem is that maybe European Union. That's the problem of the European Union, and I think the European Union has a moral problem to organize the similar dialogue like it was between Pristina and Belgrade, with active participation with Serbia and Croatia, because Serbia and Croatia were, let's say, more or less indifferent. They did not try, they have large minorities in Bosnia, but they did not try to elevate, help the problem, but will repeat just the empty phrases. We will support everything which three peoples agree upon. But these three people can neither want to agree, neither are able to agree, and even the European Union, I hear saying, well, the responsibility is on the local leaders. So we have this vicious circle about Bosnia, and the only big breakthrough is to organize a serious international dialogue with neighboring countries, to come to some agreement. I'm sure that if that way is still open, that we come to a very specific model of functioning of Bosnia, because we need a lot of creativity to make Bosnia as a viable state in future. This is my proposal. Whether this is going to happen, I don't know. But my last point, just am I finishing? I just wanted to say that what was the influence of fatigue of enlargement, because the enlargement is actually our topic. We are completely aware now that there is that fatigue of European Union and leading countries like France and Germany. When you talk to them, they say, well, after Croatia, nobody, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, we don't know when there will be a new enlargement. And even the new enlargements make them completely nervous, Hearing about that, they don't like to hear anything. I think that we have to find some breakthrough this fatigue, because I'm completely convinced that Western Balkan countries has to strengthen up among themselves, strengthen their regional cooperation, and knock much harder on the door of European Union, and to say much louder that there will be no improvements in transitional questions, as you meant, which is actually the transition in all these countries, frankly to say, were completely unsuccessful, neither in marketization, democratization, institutions, whatever. It was completely a failure, the transition in these countries. So if we want to resolve these problems, and if European Union does not have focus, to help that process, we will not have any chance to really reach full stabilization and normalize life in this region. So I would like to warn, whoever would like to hear that that fatigue I take just maybe for temporary, but should not stay, because there is no future for these countries if European Union is not having a main role in helping this country to achieve the standards and become the member of the European Union. The vision of this 10 years ago, that will all be, that was the measure of stabilization in the Balkans, when all these countries will be the full members of the European Union. So I would never, for me, accept, that fatigue, and that there will be no chance for these countries. Thank you.